Was that a kind of a concern for you? I don't know if it's too personal to ask, but like when you went back on stage with Angelmaker, was that one of your, you know what I mean? Because like Dom was talking about like, you know, loud music and stuff like that, and you were literally, you know, going on a freaking stage. Did you kind of thought
Oh
about like,
yeah.
oh shit,
Well,
I hope.
that that band uses an in-ear rig,
Hmm.
so there's no monitors and everyone is plugged in. I didn't have like the super Gucci custom made ones that like noise cancel, but they were enough to where like I didn't really want to stand really close to the drum set or whatever, you know. And I certainly didn't want to hear anything without because they were just like Shure kind of plug or Sennheiser
Yeah.
plugs. They actually
At
do a
least
really good
some
job.
noise reduction, at least. Yeah.
Totally. And then I have a volume control.
Yeah.
So it's like I did was like going into it, that was like one of my concerns was like how loud I needed it. But I never had a problem. I never
Okay, cool.
and yeah. And that was actually like a really inspiring tour in the sense of like when I was around bands that were touring or playing in bands when I was young, it seemed very much so like group of guys, you all have your amps, you have the monitors, like you need to hear things and whatnot. So it's just like loud and complicated, right? But with the in-ears, it was perfect because like not only could I hear everything and didn't need to like whatever, but I could hear myself crazy good. So like there is sounds like a lot of like my really deep gurgling things like when you're in the studio doing that, you have your headphones on, and there's like a, you know, you're applying a certain amount of pressure to whatever is producing the sound to like nail the tone and the
Yeah.
pitch. Like you can have the same kind of position, vocally position, but if you start to apply more force, it'll change the vocal type and it will sound different. So like prior to that, I could never do those sounds live because I couldn't really hear what the hell was
Yeah.
going on. I had no way of like figuring out what sounds I was making. So I would always just do like more over projected, more
Yeah, you're just
brutal, more
belting. Yeah.
muffled belting. With that tour, it was the first tour where I was like, ooh, I can really hear myself. It feels like I'm in a studio with the
That's what I was
in-ears
going to
in.
ask.
So
Exactly. You've done so much of that too, right? Recording yourself and recording studio that like that must have just been super familiar at that point too.
it was so good. It literally every night felt like I was like recording vocals. Like I could hear everything about my performance. And I just knew if it sounded cool in my ears, it was going to sound great on the front of house.
Hmm.
So that really built like a bunch, not just a bunch of confidence, but really added to like the dynamics of how I could do vocals live. And that was fun too. That tour was hilarious because like Casey and Mike on the records to me before getting into the music really sounded really similar and they're the music in a lot of ways was really simple and just well written and the complexity really came from the vocals. I mean obviously the drums are insane but that's like the style you know so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like the drummer's insane but it's like that's just how he
That's
plays
just the baseline of that genre.
exactly and the same could be said for the guitars like the way they would I mean obviously those guys have crazy endurance as guitar players but like you know pretty simple
A lot of tremolo
stuff for the
riffs
most
and
part.
like yeah, yeah.
Exactly. You know, which were, you know, again, part of like just what's in the genre, but it wasn't like the songwriting wasn't overly complicated or technical. The complicated part of that band was really the vocals and how each vocal, because it's pretty much constant vocals because there's two
Yeah.
of them. They are just always switching back and forth, and there's no like
Crazy
pauses
patterns. It's not like yeah.
crazy patterns. All the patterns too were kind of like patterns that I'm not really used to organically like doing myself.
Hmm.
So it was really challenging to learn this stuff that really felt like it was out of my comfort pocket of how I really approach vocals when I'm writing them and performing them. And I actually got super sick right before leaving. There was like 2 or 3 days where I was really going to dedicate to like learning the songs. Before that, I would try learning them was impossible. And so I was just like, I just need to be a fan of like these songs. So I made like a Spotify playlist of the set list and I just listened to it all the time to the point where I just knew the songs.
Yeah.
I didn't know who was doing what vocals or what was being said, but I'd figure that out later. So I was just going to like Casey made like these vocal maps for me where it was all color coded, and I just was going to go through and like record my parts to the songs like karaoke just over and over and over again. And we had like 4 practices before we actually went out, specifically around because I was needed to learn the song still. Those guys, that set particularly, they had down. Like they could play it. They were playing it like it was nothing. Like they've already played that set. All of them were so good. Like I was so impressed with that band as a band and as musicians, but like to reflect on like as a band, just like their way of playing with each other, how they had their rig of how they like did the show aspect. And so Casey and I were like really working on the vocals. And it was funny because he had this laptop and he was always making changes to the lyrics as we were like doing it too, like fixing it and whatnot and like trying to color code it better. And I just gave up on like this is a high, this is a low part, because they were very much like, this is a low, this is a high. I'm like, I'm not going to focus on that. I'm just going to nail it. And like, I mean, it was great. Colton said this thing because the first practice I was also like pretty sick, and they were like, yeah, just go like 50%, go like 20%, just like learn the songs and, you know, feel good. And so I was doing things like sometimes I wouldn't even do any vocals. I just would like say the lyrics or whatever. And I was mainly just doing like the really low stuff that required a little less energy. And I remember like, because they all have the in-ears and you could choose like who you want to hear. And all of them are used to muting the vocalists. They just listen to each other. And they all turn the vocals on for this. And then they're all listening. And then they're all like, dude, this is crazy. And Colton, after the first set run through, he looked at me and he was just like, he goes, it's going to work. And like the way he says it, and he said it like kind of twice, I was like, yeah, it's going to work. So they were all super stoked. So my confidence went way up. And then we did a few more practices and I wasn't quite there yet. Like I couldn't do the songs blindfolded. So Casey set up a tripod and filmed himself going through the laptop while we were playing, and they played like a click track. There's only one break in the set, so he did 2 videos, and for the first like I don't know, handful of shows, we had like a little laptop right in front of the stage, and I would press play when Johnny would hit play on the set. So I had like a map of the lyrics that would go through that was synced to the music, and that really helped me kind of learn the songs even more. But then I noticed like I was starting to really get it, and looking at the computer like made me second guess things. And it was actually kind of throwing me off towards the end, which was a good sign. But that was like kind of a funny like back end thing. And there were certain venues we had where there wasn't like a pit between the crowd and the stage, so people would like jump on the stage, and I would be like guarding this laptop, you know, just like doing the songs. Yeah, so that was a really funny part. Actually, for the final set when we recorded, I was like, let me just because we're recording it, let me just bring the laptop up, and then the laptop like in 2 songs in died, and I was just like, rock and roll, baby, let's go.
Meant to be.
Exactly. So that was like the funny insight of that. But vocally, they were like the most brutal Angelmaker sets ever, because Casey's such a great vocalist. Like his way of doing certain parts, like he has so much like pizzazz over like his segments. And so much control over like his range. I was so impressed with him every night, the whole time. But like most of my parts, like as I got more comfortable and as like I wasn't sick anymore, I would definitely do some high screams in there occasionally, but I would just do them based on how it felt, right? I wouldn't like default to doing a high part because it was like high vocals on the record or something. But like, so there was like a lot of parts where it was just like, and I'm like definitely like a death metal / brutal death metal vocalist. I can't really beat that, where these guys were like more deathcore type vocalists, and not just the way they do vocals, but also the way the music is and the way the patterns they write. So it was really cool feeling and hearing it and being a part of like this performance of this music that's just so good and so well written and so well performed, but like my parts were super brutal. So and there's like some really brutal parts of Angelmaker songs where it's like, you know, really slammy or like just like double kicks and like just a sick riff, and I'm just
Yeah.
like going on it, and like everyone, like the crowds, but also all of us on stage are just like, this is so brutal. We were all stoked.
I
So
think it's
it was,
adding an extra value. To be honest, like we had that conversation, you know, like, oh my God, he's gonna, you know, he's gonna play with them and everything. For the fans, like I think I'm a good example of that because I love bands like Waking a Cadaver and all that style of like brutal death kind of vocals that we don't see it a lot in deathcore. You know what I mean? Like, yes, there's certain tones, but like that's the tone you have, like this specific like gutturals, brutal deaths. It's not something we hear that much, you know, in the deathcore scene. So I feel like a lot of people are excited about that because it's adding an extra layer that maybe was more present back in the days. I would say, like, it was maybe more of a part of early deathcore. We would hear that it was heavily
yeah,
influenced by death metal, but now it's strictly like you can really recognize deathcore vocals and stuff. So I feel like there's really a value here, especially with two freaking vocalists. You have like the
yeah.
vocalist super deathcore, then brutal like it's, I mean, it's incredible. So
It was sick. Like that was like the energy the whole time. It was like every show was the best show. We were all having the best time. We loved the way everything sounded. Like those guys are really into like how they sound and how they feel about how they sound, and they're very grounded, and they're very like humble about it, and they're super talented. So like just they were the best group of guys to go out with and do that and kind of like re-enter not just like music more on like a more physical level, but also like, you know, the whole performance aspect of it. It was just like 10 out of 10. I'm so glad we filmed it the last show and recorded it. Like I even got all the multi-tracks and they sent it to me to mix. So like I mixed it and then ran it through Big Slime. So it has like
That's
a
sick.
super loud
Fuck
analog
yeah.
master on it. Yeah. So we're like, we were on the tour, we are like, should we do this? Should we not? Should we not? Like it was kind of like a and then like me and Colton were like, yeah, like we have to do this. So like we did it, and we're really stoked. I don't know when that's coming out.
Once in a
but
lifetime thing, right? Like you guys knew going into it that this was like 6 or 7 shows and like it's going to be something different and something special. It's like, and we're not talking about like, they're not just bringing some random friend on tour
Yeah.
to replace either. It's like, it's someone that's well known and well liked in the scene, you know, that's going to add something different. Like I think the whole idea was iconic to begin with, right? So I'm so fucking happy to know that we're gonna get a, you know, some sort of docu / performance vid to come out of
Yeah.
that, because I wasn't expecting that. That's so fucking sick.
yeah, we're really pumped. Like I don't know, we all still feel super stoked on that. I talk to those guys all the time. Like I don't know, I'm always messaging them random stuff and whatnot. Especially like Matt Perrin, such a goofball. I always send him like the stupidest stuff all the time. They're so funny. They're the best group of guys, and they all like, aside from Steven, they all kind of grew up together
Yeah.
around the same area. So like they were all really tight, you know?
Yeah,
So it's
they've
just
got
like,
the high school friend vibe, you know. They've known each other
Definitely.
for fucking ever.
yeah, no, I love Angelmaker forever. Like, you know, it's not really a joke, but it's like, I'm still an Angelmaker. You know what I mean? That's like,
Hey, who
that's like the
knows?
thing. Yeah. But that's like the, yeah, you're in the band now. And it felt like that. Like when I was out with them, it didn't feel like I was filling in. It felt like I was like legit in the band when I was with them,
You're on,
which
you're
just
on the
added to
team.
everything. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but fantastic dudes. All the hats off to Angel. And what a cool band for the scene too. Like I really believe that there will be like a legacy type band. And their style is great too. Like I could see those guys playing those songs for like decades. You know what I mean? Like
Dude,
it's metal enough where they could just like they could play that well into like their more mature years of their lives.
I mean, look, they've
no
already
question.
been around for a while, you know, like Dissensions is like 2013, 2012, 13. Like it's like, it's already 10 years old plus, you know, and those songs to me sound as modern as anything that comes out today still. So I think,
Yeah.
and they have a way of like blending the old school stuff in a tasteful way within a more modern sounding deathcore sound. I don't know. I've been really, really stoked on seeing all of their success, specifically the past 2 years, from like headlining their own tours to like big fucking crowds, to being on really awesome fucking support slots in the past year or so. So it's been, I mean, nobody deserves it more than them, man. They're fucking
Seriously.
amazing dudes, man. It's
Yeah,
cool. It's
like-
cool to see, because it's been a while, right? Like they've always had hype, but not like they weren't headlining outside of Vancouver, you know. But to see what they're doing like the past 2 years have been really fucking cool.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And the trajectory is for sure set. Like the morale in that band is really good. Like they're entering a new. I think they're entering like their. Yeah, Dissentient and a lot of their older stuff is like crucial material for the catalog. But I feel like the next 5-10 years for that band are just going to be like so good and so consistent and so solid. Like I'm real stoked for the future and immediate future of Angelmaker as well. It was funny too. Like after I got off that tour, I went home and I saw that Manson Slaughter show, and it was cool watching Slaughter play to that crowd.
Right.
Just like, you know, because it's the genre is
how
there.
How big it is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. The genre is there.
Deathcore
Like,
playing
it was very
arenas.
flush. Yeah. It was very flush with the Manson crowd. And I remember thinking that Angelmaker would have killed that show. Killed it. Like they would have had that whole venue in their hands. Like everyone would have been like, this is so sick. So I remember like being like, yeah, you guys are top notch. Like that would have crushed on that tour. And it, you know, deathcore had like this thing where like, I think a lot of like, you know, like, does it deserve to be there? And like, it's like, yeah, 100%. 100% you can mix that in with Manson. It's actually a perfect opener for Manson, was a deathcore act. I thought it was fun. It was theatrical and just the way it sounded sonically, you know. And then
so
Manson
over the top,
comes on
right? It's the same. It's kind of like that shock value thing, or just I don't know. There's something about like, yeah, I can see what you're saying.
And also for Angelmaker, cool thing for me is that they were still doing what we could call the old school deathcore thing back when not all of bands were doing it. It was around but I don't have the exact year.
Yeah,
but
like early
exactly.
2010s.
But I remember they kind of got me back into some of that stuff. I think the song was like Godless or something like that. I was just like, oh my God, they're actually, you know, like they're doing the old school with two vocal, you know what I mean? I was like, oh my God, that's so freaking sick. Back when it wasn't, you know what I mean? Deathcore kind
wasn't cool
of
anymore. Yeah,
no. And they just like came out and just, that's what we're doing.
They powered through it, man. We can say that much, right? Through the lull of deathcore. Yeah. They're a band that made it through, like came up at deathcore's demise and just like weathered it until now, you know. It's
in a major way.
I think that's a big thing to their success too, because Colton was talking about that once. I was just at a certain point in our friendship, I just would ask him a lot of Angelmaker questions because I was really interested by it, and obviously really interested in Colton. So hearing more about like, you know, the history of his music was like a huge interest to me. But he was kind of saying how like they formed when deathcore was like really cool in Vancouver, and there was all these like other bands that were local Vancouver bands that they like looked up to. And then they said that all the bands either disbanded or became death metal bands when deathcore wasn't cool anymore.
Yep.
And they just kept doing it. And then deathcore became cool again, and they were just like soldiers at it. And just in the perfect position to benefit off of like it kind of shifting back to like people wanting this sound again. And just
they're ready for
great
it. They're not a new
songwriting.
band
Yeah.
like trying to figure out their sound and trying to figure out what it's like being on the road and finding the right members and all these things that come with being a new band coming into the scene today,
And they were ready to, like when deathcore made the comeback with Lorna and all that stuff, they were on the very first tour that Lorna did here. I was at that show, and I saw it as someone who like heard Angelmaker like for a long time, seeing them on that specific huge tour. I don't remember everybody. It was like a lot of good bands, Aborted and Lorna. It was like the big tour that sold out in 20 seconds back after, COVID.
Right
and everything.
after COVID, yeah.
Exactly. So, and I was there, and I remember thinking, I saw their set and could have been headlining anything basically, like I remember we spoke about that like a few times. I was impressed by Of Sulfur too, but like Angelmaker, the energy that it felt like in old school freaking deathcore show. It was super great. So I saw it as not as a victor or whatever, but like for that I saw it as a win, because like they were, I always saw them as like an old school deathcore kind of band. So to be included in the new kind of wave or whatever, even if Lorna has been at it for a while, it was cool to see that. It was like, yeah, they're ready, man. They're at their place, type
they're
thing.
top notch, and they're really like a live band. Their records are great. But like the live aspect of Angelmaker is like, that's when a lot of things like click.
They're right for the show,
like,
the energy,
totally. That was like majorly inspiring to me playing with them. And it's like you could probably gain a lot of that inspiration by watching them and watching great bands, especially like it just gave me a whole new perspective on deathcore about how this is like a live sound and whatnot. You're so used to hearing it on
over-processed,
recorded,
overproduced.
And then you see it live, you're like, whoa, this is like really crazy and sick. But like being a part of it too, like being a part of that performance that they bring, it like really kind of like changed my perspective a little bit on certain songwriting tips, like the way they would do little things and just how much that of an emphasis that would have in the room. I was like, okay, like I haven't written for like a live mindset, and I don't think ever, but I'm like, it'd be hard to not at this point after like experiencing that. And I really hope it has like a lasting impression on like the music I make, reflecting on that time with them for sure. Just being a part of that performance that is like Angelmaker, you know what I mean? So
that's cool, man.
Hats off to them.